أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is all the same for them, whether you warn them or do not warn them, they will not believe. Ayah number 6, Surah Al-Baqarah. From here onward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us another group of people who are completely opposite to the one which was mentioned earlier. So this is like 180 degree, completely different. And in here Allah gives us 3 of their traits. Number 1, they have done kafaru, and this is not the normal kufr, it is a special one. Inadi kafir, zedi kafir. This is one of their traits. Now if you give them nasiha, if you give them warnings, they will not going to accept. This is another their trait. And la yu'minun, they will never believe. So these are 3 of their evil traits that Allah mentions. Now what is kafaru? What is this kufr? In the language, this is basically غطوا الحق وستروه. The thing basically covering the truth and concealing it. This is basically what it is. And later on in the Quran, in a different place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives example of a farmer. كَمَثَلِ غَيْثِ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ. This comes later on. So a farmer is called a kafir in the language because he covers the seed. Same is the situation of the people, because we have all been created on fitrah. We have all believed in God basically. But the people, they cover up this truth with their whims and desires, their culture, their society, their wants, what the people are saying in their environment and so on. So they cover it up with all this rubbish. So the truth is hidden. So they cover that up. So this is basically a kufr in that way. And also, kufr is being ungrateful. Like Allah says in a different place, Surah Insan, I think, إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. You be either grateful or ungrateful, it's up to you. Basically your choice. So it has come in that fashion. What is the most ungratefulness of a person? That they completely disregard their master, the one who has created them, and he turns his face on him. This is the greatest of ungratefulness of a human being. So this is a kufr in that sense as well. Now, the ulama has talked about it in great details, because you see later on, or in our day-to-day life, we see kafirs that we call them kafir, they believe, but in here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a quality that they were not going to believe. They're not going to believe. So these kafir, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions kafir in Quran, is completely different than our understanding, because then it will contradict the Quran itself. Later on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah has guided through this Quran and misguided through. So what is this all about if Allah guides people? Meaning they have already been misguided previously. So they through this Quran they become Muslim. And we have seen people revert to Islam. So this is not that kind of kafir. These are those people who are stubborn. And Allah does bring their example in various different places. Like it comes in Surah Nahl, where Allah says, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًا فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. And they rejected them. Meaning this is related to Musa, the Fir'aun and his people, when Musa alayhi salam presented the mu'jiza, the ayat that Allah gave to Musa alayhi salam to show to these people. So they rejected, while their inner, in the bracket selves, were convinced thereof. So basically, the entire summary of their kufr, the one which is mentioned in here, is that someone knowing, 100% sure, but on top of that, due to maybe their ego, due to their culture, because of people are going to be saying, or just they seeing themselves above, then joining this religion, or joining being part of a Muslim, or a Muslim identity. They just don't want to be part of it, so they want to stay away from this, while knowing the reality. So these are that kind of kafir. And some ulama mentioned these are like the worst of the people, because in here, who is giving da'wah? أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ, meaning talking to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you were to give them da'wah, meaning talking about the best giving da'wah to the worst. So these are the worst. So of course we're not going to get the best of the people who give da'wah, we're not going to get the worst of the criminals either. So we got the both balance in here. Later on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring munafiqun. We're not going to get that kind of munafiqun which were in time of Rasul, and similarly we're not going to be able to get that kind of iman that was in time of Rasul, but it's to that level. So you're going to have that kind of people. Now in Quran, because the best tafseer, because people have written many books, people have their own opinions and so on. The best tafsir of Quran is through the Quran. And there is a few ayats in Surah Fussilat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautifully explains what this kufr is and what happens to these kuffar when the ayat of Allah are recited to them. So this is ayah number 3 from Surah Fussilat. Allah says, كِتَابٌ فُصِّلَتْ آيَاتُهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لِقَوْمٍ يَعْلَمُونَ. A book whose verses have been detailed in Arabic Quran, meaning in the Arabic language. For who? For the people who know. So the people who are ulama, what are ulama? Those people who go to the madaris and spend 8, 9, 10 years, are these the only people? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a different place, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Those people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ulama. Who were the people in the time of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? The Sahaba. They are known as the unlettered people at the time. They were given that laqab because they didn't know how the book. Most of them didn't know how to read and write. But they knew the language and they were sincere. They wanted it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them same thing in here. Those people who will be able to understand Quran is those people who want it. Those people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are sincere in their drive. Like we mentioned earlier in Hudal lil Muttaqin. Same thing, same situation here. What is the situation that Allah brings of these people? بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا فَأَعْرَضَ أَكْثَرُهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. As a griever of good tidings and a warner. This is the Quran. But most of them turn away, so they do not hear. Now when these people are informed, when these people, which we are talking about here, kuffar basically, when they are told about the glad tidings of Quran, that Allah has given a glad tidings to those people who listen to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those people who do not lie, those who do not cheat, who are good, who are sincere, who are honest in their tijara, who do not break their promises and so on, when they are given glad tidings of these, Allah honors these people. Like Allah says, فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادِ, give glad tidings to my servants. Who are there? الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ قَوْلِ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَ. They listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran and they follow it. So this is the glad tidings. When they are told about this and they are warned about وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ, the utter destruction is for those people who backbite, who slander, who take tales and so on. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ, utter destruction before those people who causes damage in the scales and so on. When they are warned about these things, what do they say? They turn away from them and they tell them, like, get lost. We do not want to hear these things. This is for you. You deal with it. You don't understand the current time. You don't understand the current situation. You go to have some sort of dishonesty. You go to have some sort of leeway in order to survive in this society. Otherwise, people are going to step over you and so on. So they will come with their excuses. Why? وَقَالُوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقر ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون. Allah beautifully sum up the situation of these people, which is coming later on the next ayah that we're doing in Surah Al-Baqarah. So they say, our hearts are within covering from that to which you invite us, and our ears is deafness, and between us and you is a partition. So work, indeed we are working. Meaning our heart does not accept what you are saying. It does not touches our heart. It's not there. It's meaning our heart are covered from what you are calling toward us. Our ears, they have blockage on it. There is a deafness. It does not suit us basically. No matter how much you call them, it does not go in. Like leave the example aside because we don't have time. وَمِن بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنِكَ حِجَابٌ. Between us and you is covering. Like you have your own world and we have our own world. We cannot align our aim together. You have your own life, you live that way. Basically, you do whatever you need to do, and we're going to do our way. It's just because what you're calling to us is completely against our culture, it's completely against our Pukhto, basically. It's completely different than what we already believe in. It's completely different than what the country demands from us. You go to support these people, and you go to say bad things about the other people, even if they are oppressed and so on. It's just not going to work. You deal with your own ways, and we're going to deal with our own ways. But this basically is calling toward the Quran, the ayats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the ayats are presented to them. فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ فَأَعْرِضْ أَكْثَرُهُم. They turn away from the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while they knowingly that this is the right way, but they still don't want to choose it. For example, easy example that we can all understand. The issue, what is it? I don't even know the name. Transgender, yeah? LGBT, that situation. I saw recently a post that I think cricket, those guys, they have banned those people who changed from male to female. Yeah, no matter what they are. They banned that situation, but they banned this. But however, in the current world, you cannot say that what they are doing is wrong. This is not right. It does not make sense. If you say this, you will be labeled that these people don't understand, these people are backward and this and this and this. But they do not allow this in their own sports. So this is the double standards that we're living in. You cannot say that what is right. You even knowing it, but you cannot say it. So this is a very bad example that I gave relation to dunya. But basically this is the same situation of many people when Quran is presented to them. When they are given the dalail of Sharia, how important the Sharia is, how we meant to live under the Quran and how valuable and how peaceful it's going to be, how it is the best way. They understand the reality, but they cannot get it on because they know people are going to calling them backwards. People are going to be saying that these people are following the book which was revealed for the Bedouins and so on. Na'udhu billah, whatever field they're going to be. Because of that, they do not want to be part of this Islamic sense basically. So this is the reality of these people. And lastly, one thing, and then we will end. In here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the situation of the criminals, that they're not going to hear, they're not going to listen, they're not going to take the warning with seriousness. However, there's a da'i, he gives up, he says no, they're not going to listen anyway, so I'm not going to do anything about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in here, أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ. So in here is no سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ. It is same on them, not on you. سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْكَ, not on you. Meaning you will give da'wah. For you there is fruit in it, for you there is goodness in it, and there is another hint toward this, because we learn in the narrations that Allah, one of the name of Allah is a Shafi, the healer, and the good healer, they never give up. They never give up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent His representative in this dunya, which were the prophets, and now we're following the footsteps of Rasul, that we go to give da'wah. We don't know what is happening internally. This is the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He hasn't given us the names that these kind of people are the kuffar, because these are the vicious people, and Allah has put a stamp on them. But our duty is continuous, and you go to give da'wah. You never give up, because what is happening internally in people's heart, we do not decide that. We cannot call a person that this is the same kafir. These are the people. These are the one who's not going to listen. We do not give this stamp. It's not in our hand. Take an example. It's getting a bit extended, but just one example, because it's very important to understand this concept. In Surah Hudaybiyah, when Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to attack with the Sahaba, the Makkans, because they held hostage of Uthman radhiyallahu anhu, and then he came in. So that plan was disturbed, so they did not attack basically, and they went on their way. It's a long story, but the point in here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a very beautiful point in there. In there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, nearest meaning, that had it not been that there were believers, men and women, in those people, because they were the worst of the kuffar at the time. They had the worst of the people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed Rasul. Had it not been, meaning Rasul was not informed of what kind of people are living there. There might be people who accepted Islam, but because of the pressure, because of the society, they could not come out. So Allah told them, had it not been for them, then they would have been given the permission, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have made the situation that they would have gone there and caused whatever they meant to do. So this is the situation of the Sahaba, this situation of Rasul, that he is not informed of what is happening internally. So same is going to be our situation when we give da'wah, when we call people toward Islam. We go to be soft, we go to give it the best way, again and again and again. Whether people accept or do not accept, that's their own problem, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with them accordingly. Wallahu a'lam. May Allah forgive our shortcomings. Jazakallah khair.